Okay, let's unpack this. Because usually when we think about the law, there is this underlying expectation of precision,
Well,
right?
absolutely, yeah.
You think of it like, I don't know, engineering. Like you build a bridge, the math says it holds a certain amount of weight, and that is just exactly how it works.
Right, it's supposed to be reliable.
Exactly. But then you step into the world of actual governance, and suddenly that perfectly engineered bridge is, well, it's swaying violently in a Category 5 hurricane.
That is a very accurate way to put it.
Yeah, we are looking at a landscape today where the rules written on paper are colliding directly with the incredibly messy reality of human behavior. So, welcome to today's deep dive. It is Thursday, May 7, 2026.
And we've got quite the stack to get through today.
We really do. The stack of sources we are going through today is an absolute goldmine. I mean, it's specifically curated with a UPSC aspirant in mind, but honestly, if you just want to understand the hidden areas of how the world actually runs, this is totally for you.
Yeah, anyone who cares about governance.
Right. Our mission today is to explore that friction between rigid structures and complex realities. And I don't think there is a better place to see that friction right now than the unprecedented political gridlock unfolding in Tamil Nadu.
I'm looking at the post-election numbers in our sources, and it is a complete puzzle. No one has a clear mandate.
No, they really don't. The post-election climate there has resulted in a classic hung assembly, which, it completely tests the limits of our constitutional mechanics. So the Tamilagavetri Kazhagam, or the TVK, they emerged as the single largest party.
Right, with 107 MLAs, if I'm reading this right.
Exactly, 107. But Governor Rajendra Vishwanath Arlekar has just refused to invite them to form a government.
Wow.
Yeah, the governor's office maintains that the requisite majority support simply hasn't been established yet. And the math behind the scenes is incredibly complex.
Because the DMK holds, what, 59 seats?
Right, 59 seats.
Yeah.
And the sources indicate they are actually toying with the idea of extending outside support to their historical arch-rival, the AIADMK.
Which is wild to even think about. It is. And holding the crucial swing votes are the left parties, so the CPI and CPIM, along with the VCK. They each hold 2 seats. So even with the TVK securing the support of, I think, 5 Congress MLAs to bring their effective total to 112, it's just a total gridlock.
So what happens when a state is stuck in this kind of limbo? Because the governor is sitting in the middle of all this, and it feels like being a referee in a game where, nobody knows the actual score. How much power does the governor actually have to just hit the pause button on the state's governance?
Well, if we look at Supreme Court precedents, that discretion is not absolute at all. I mean, the landmark S.R. Bommai judgment from 1994, along with the Rameshwar Prasad case, those dictate that the governor's primary duty is to ensure the formation of a stable government.
Just to prevent a complete breakdown of the constitutional machinery, right?
Exactly. The Bommai judgment actually established a clear hierarchy for who to invite. So it's a pre-poll alliance first, then the single largest party claiming to form a government, and finally a post-poll coalition.
Okay, that makes sense.
And the Sarkaria Commission also cautioned that a governor shouldn't just wait indefinitely. Enforcing some arbitrary cooling-off period can actually encourage horse trading and defections. The ultimate test of a majority is supposed to happen on the floor of the assembly.
Not behind closed doors in the governor's office.
Exactly. Not in the governor's office.
Which makes sense why, looking at the differing perspectives in our stack of sources, the governor's actions are drawing so much fire from all sides. I mean, the left parties are heavily criticizing the delay as completely undemocratic.
Yeah, they are not holding back.
No, and CPIM General Secretary M.A. Baby brought up this really interesting historical parallel. He cited the 1996 Vajpayee government. He pointed out that Atal Bihari Vajpayee didn't have the numbers initially, but the president allowed him to form a government and attempt to prove his majority on the floor.
It's a strong precedent to bring up.
Yeah, and meanwhile, you have the DMK passing a resolution accusing the Congress of betrayal for quitting their alliance to back the TVK. It's just a massive political pressure cooker.
It really is.
But here's the thing that confuses me. Let's say a government actually is formed. The sources detail something called the Anti-Defection Law, which is supposed to stop elected officials from constantly switching sides, right?
Right, that's the intention.
But there is this massive loophole being used right now that the sources refer to as a legal fiction. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so the 10th schedule of the Constitution houses the Anti-Defection Law, and its primary goal is to protect the mandate of the voters by penalizing legislators who defect. However, paragraph 4 contains an exemption.
Okay, what kind of exemption?
It protects legislators from disqualification if their original political party merges with another party, and at least two-thirds of the legislature party, meaning the elected MLAs or MPs, agree to that merger.
Right.
But what we're seeing now is a legal interpretation that fundamentally alters this mechanism. So the Bombay High Court recently upheld mergers in Goa, and the Rajya Sabha chairman accepted the merger of 7 Aam Aadmi Party MPs with the BJP, based solely on a two-thirds resolution of those elected legislators.
Okay, wait, I need to push back on that. Wait, if two-thirds of the elected MLAs jump ship, isn't that practically a merger anyway? Why does the structure of the original out-of-power political party even matter in the eyes of the law if the majority of the people we elected want to move?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it matters because it completely bypasses the entire democratic apparatus that got them elected in the first place.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, the Supreme Court precedent here is the Bengal immunity case. That case established that the structural merger of the original political party is the substantive mandatory condition.
So the party has to merge first.
Yes, the agreement of two-thirds of the legislators is merely a verifying step. So when institutions ignore the original party structure, they're creating a legal fiction. They're turning a structural merger of a political organization into a simple headcount of politicians.
Wow, so it completely cuts the voters and the actual party volunteers out of the equation.
Exactly. It allows elected officials to use the party machinery to win an election and then just discard the party structure entirely without facing any disqualification.
So the law on paper says one thing, but the loophole allows the exact opposite. That tension is fascinating, especially when we look at who decides what the rules actually mean. Because if governors act as the referees at the state level, the umpires of our national democracy are the election commissioners.
Right.
And right now, the Supreme Court is actively scrutinizing how those national umpires are appointed.
They are. The Supreme Court is questioning the validity of the 2023 law regarding the appointment of the Chief Election Commissioner and the election commissioners. And to really understand the gravity here, we have to look back at the 2023 Anupan Baranwal judgment.
What happened in that one?
In that ruling, the Supreme Court removed the appointment power from the exclusive hands of the political executive. They mandated a selection panel consisting of the Prime Minister, the Leader of the Opposition, and the Chief Justice of India.
With the goal being institutional independence, obviously.
Yeah.
But then Parliament responded by passing a new act that replaced the Chief Justice of India with a union cabinet minister, which, I mean, that essentially gives the executive branch the 2-to-1 majority again.
Yeah, it undid the balance.
It's structurally similar to a team captain getting to handpick the referee right before the championship game. But I guess my question is, if Parliament passes a law, doesn't the judiciary have to respect the legislative process? How does the Supreme Court challenge a law without crossing the line into writing legislation themselves?
That's the core issue. The court is focusing heavily on the procedural reality of how that law was passed. Justice Dipankar Datta raised a really pointed question about whether a proper debate even occurred.
Because of the suspensions, right?
Right. Advocates highlighted that this new law was passed during an en masse suspension of opposition members of parliament. Literally, only one opposition member, MP Asaduddin Owaisi, was present to object.
Just one person.
Just one. So the court is asking if the underlying ethos of their original constitutional judgment was respected by the legislature at all. It's a profound test of the separation of powers. The judiciary is trying to determine if a law passed by a suspended parliament holds the democratic weight required to govern the institution that oversees the democracy itself.
Man, we are seeing these rigid statutory texts cause immense friction in the political sphere. But, you know, as I read through today's sources, that same dynamic, rigid laws colliding with reality has far more devastating consequences when it comes to fundamental human rights and bodily autonomy.
It absolutely does.
We have this interview in the stack with experts Deepika Jain and Alka Barua, and they're discussing the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act, the MTP Act, and how it interacts with the new criminal code, the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, or BNS.
Yeah, and the structural reality here is really grim. Abortion remains criminalized under Section 88 of the BNS. That is the baseline.
It's a crime first.
Exactly. The MTP Act does not grant a fundamental right to abortion. It merely acts as a conditional exception to the criminal code, and it enforces a very rigid 24-week statutory limit for terminations.
Which leaves out a lot of people.
A lot.
Yeah.
While there are narrow exceptions for, severe fetal anomalies or immediate threats to the mother's life, this inflexibility severely harms vulnerable demographics. Survivors of sexual assault, or minors, they frequently seek medical intervention very late in their pregnancy.
Right, due to severe trauma or social stigma or literally just a simple lack of biological awareness.
Exactly.
And that is the part I find so incredibly jarring, because in 2022, the Supreme Court unequivocally recognized reproductive decisional autonomy as a fundamental right.
They did.
The court stated clearly that the decision belongs to the pregnant person. So why is the medical community still treating the MTP Act like a conditional permission slip? I don't understand how a 16-year-old walking into a clinic for a safe termination suddenly triggers a police investigation.
Well, the mechanism driving that fear is the Protection of Children from Sexual Offenses Act, known as the POCSO Act.
Okay, how does that intersect?
Section 19 of POCSO mandates the strict reporting of child sexual abuse. It is a mandatory reporting law. So if a minor seeks a termination, the doctor is legally bound under POCSO to report the pregnancy to the police, because the law assumes statutory rape.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And if the doctor failed to report it, the doctor themselves can face severe criminal prosecution. So even though the Supreme Court attempted to harmonize these laws in 2022 to protect the identities of minors seeking health care, the ground reality is a massive chilling effect.
It's like a fire alarm system that, instead of opening the emergency exits, automatically locks all the doors.
That's exactly what it's like.
The law is designed to protect the minor from abuse, but the mechanism of the law just terrifies the medical establishment.
Precisely. Doctors lack clear, localized protocols, and the fear of police involvement is absolute. So consequently, medical professionals simply refuse services.
Which is so dangerous.
Very. And as Alcambarua points out in the source material, restricting safe access never stops abortions. When a person makes the decision to terminate a pregnancy, they will find a way.
Right.
The rigidity of the law merely pushes highly vulnerable minors away from safe clinical environments and forces them into unsafe, unregulated, and highly dangerous back alley pathways.
So the legal system is so focused on the rigid conditions of the statute that it completely ignores the holistic reality of the patient standing right in front of them.
Exactly.
And honestly, this medical blind spot is a perfect metaphor for how our broader public health frameworks operate. We consistently ignore crucial hidden data because our systems are designed to only look at one piece of the puzzle.
That's very true.
We have sources today on India's RMNCH+A program, which, for those who don't know, covers reproductive, maternal, newborn, child, and adolescent health. It focuses almost entirely on maternal health, but completely misses paternal preconception health.
This huge gap.
Give me an ELI 5. Explain it like I'm 5 on what epigenetics actually means in this context and why ignoring the father's health is such a massive oversight.
Sure. So epigenetics is essentially the study of biological switches. You have your DNA, which is the underlying code, but epigenetics determines which parts of that code are turned on or turned off by your environment.
Okay.
So in the context of paternal health, a father's lifestyle, his diet, exposure to environmental toxins, stress levels, or, substance use, all of that physically alters the gene expression in his sperm.
Wait, really?
Yes. And these altered genetic switches are then passed directly to the child, influencing the child's lifelong risk for metabolic diseases, neurological conditions, and overall development.
And we just don't screen for this.
No, the public health framework completely ignores this mechanism. There is no systematic screening for paternal lifestyle risks. Male involvement in this massive health program is largely reduced to just handing out iron tablets to adolescent boys.
That is insane. We are trying to build a comprehensive picture of child health while entirely ignoring 50% of the genetic contribution.
Exactly.
It's like we ignore the father's genetics in reproduction, and up until recently, we ignored the literal waste we flush away, which holds incredible public health data.
Yes, wastewater surveillance.
Right. In Bengaluru, researchers utilized wastewater surveillance, and it proved to be a highly dependable indicator of community transmission for diseases like COVID-19.
Yeah, and the mechanism behind wastewater surveillance is fascinating because it bypasses human behavior entirely.
How so?
Well, when a person is infected with a virus, they begin shedding viral RNA in their feces days before they ever develop clinical symptoms.
Or before they decide to take a test.
Right. By testing the municipal wastewater, public health officials can detect a hidden surge in the viral load of an entire community long before it registers in the hospitals.
Yeah.
It's an unbiased early warning system that catches the data we usually just flush away and ignore.
That is so smart. And speaking of municipal systems, the Supreme Court is stepping in aggressively regarding how we manage our environment at the local level. They are taking action against what they termed man-made destruction.
Yeah, regarding solid waste management.
Right, but it is the mechanism they are using that really caught my eye. The court directed the Ministry of Environment, Forest, and Climate Change to delegate its powers under Section 5 of the Environment Protection Act directly to district collectors across the country for a period of 1 year.
Yes.
For the UPSC aspirants listening, why district collectors? Why move the power down the chain like that?
What's fascinating here is that high-level, abstract policymaking is entirely useless without actual ground-level enforcement.
Oh, for sure.
The Supreme Court recognized that to ensure the strict, uniform implementation of the solid waste management rules of 2026, you need authorities who interact directly with the municipal bodies. And district collectors are the administrative head of a district. By empowering them directly with the teeth of the Environment Protection Act, the court is shifting the friction of environmental protection from ministerial offices down to the streets where the waste is actually generated and managed.
Making it practical.
Exactly. It's an attempt to build internal resilience through localized accountability.
And managing these domestic vulnerabilities, whether it is empowering local collectors, tracking viral loads in wastewater, or navigating the gridlock of state assemblies, it all builds the internal resilience a nation desperately needs. Because a nation requires that stability to project power and manage crises on a highly volatile global stage.
And it is a very volatile stage right now.
It is. Which brings us to today's date, May 7, 2026.
Right. Today marks the one-year anniversary of Operation Sindoor. On May 7, 2025, the Indian Armed Forces launched a coordinated deep-strike military offensive against terrorist camps located in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir.
Yeah.
This operation was the direct strategic response to the tragic Pahalgam terror attack, which, as we know, resulted in the deaths of 26 civilians.
And looking at the differing perspectives in the sources, the political messaging around the anniversary is, well, it's highly polarized today.
Unsurprisingly.
Right. Prime Minister Modi marked the occasion by lauding the armed forces for their immense precision. He framed the success of the mission as a testament to self-reliance, noting it underlined the strength of the Atmanirbhar Bharat Defense Initiative. And the Air Force even released exclusive footage of the strikes, which penetrated 300 kilometers deep.
It was a massive operation.
It was. But conversely, the Congress Party issued a sharp critique regarding the diplomatic aftermath. Jairam Ramesh pointed out that unlike the global response after the 2008 Mumbai attacks, Pakistan was not internationally isolated following Operation Sindoor. He noted that the United States has continued to engage and embrace the Pakistani military leadership.
And amidst all that strategic and political analysis, the sources also document the profound human cost of this geopolitical friction.
Yeah, that was heartbreaking to read.
It really is.
Yeah.
In Poonch, schools such as Christ High School are holding silent prayers today. They lost 3 young students, twins in Class 5, and an 8th grader to cross-border shelling. Their families were attempting to evacuate the area during the military operation. It's just a stark reminder that while the geopolitical chessboard operates on high-level strategy, the friction is ultimately paid for in human lives.
It really puts it into perspective, and India is currently navigating this geopolitical friction on multiple fronts right now. Amidst the Operation Sindoor anniversary, diplomatic tensions with Canada remain incredibly high, with India actively demanding that the Canadian government take concrete action against anti-India extremist elements operating on their soil.
It's a very complex, multi-front diplomatic balancing act.
Absolutely. But perhaps the most destabilizing event globally right now, the one threatening the entire economic board, is the escalating conflict between the United States and Iran.
Oh, the economic shockwaves radiating from the Middle East are just massive right now. The United States recently launched Operation Project Freedom,
which was aimed at the Strait of Hormuz, right?
Right. A military effort designed to forcibly reopen the Strait of Hormuz, a critical global shipping choke point, which Iran had effectively closed. But the U.S. operation failed within 50 hours, and they've been forced to just pause the initiative.
Wow.
Yeah, and in the meantime, while Iran denies attacking a South Korean cargo ship, they have strategically created a new agency to vet and essentially tax any commercial vessels attempting to pass through the strait.
I mean, if the United States, with all its naval supremacy, is struggling to keep a vital waterway like the Strait of Hormuz open, the domino effect is immediate.
It's global.
Yeah. Federal Reserve officials, including Chicago Fed President Austin Goolsbee, are publicly warning of sustained inflation and severe cascading supply chain shocks. We are seeing reports of Wall Street bonuses stalling out due to sheer geopolitical panic, and global companies are feeling the intense squeeze of skyrocketing oil prices.
Affecting everyone.
Which brings up a critical question regarding our own economic strategy. Here's where it gets really interesting. We have this massive India-EU free trade agreement on the horizon.
Yes, a very big deal.
Yeah, but if global supply chains are this vulnerable to a blockade in the Middle East, doesn't a massive complex trade agreement become incredibly urgent, but also highly vulnerable to these exact same shocks?
It absolutely does. And the vulnerabilities aren't just geographical, they are bureaucratic.
Yeah.
The pending India-EU Free Trade Agreement is being hailed globally as the mother of all deals. It encompasses nearly 2 billion people and covers roughly a quarter of the global GDP.
Which is huge.
Massive. Implementation is expected by early 2027, and the potential is staggering. We already see companies like Walmart sourcing over $40 billion in goods from India. However, the EU ambassador, Hervé Delphin, raised a massive red flag regarding the structural reality of the deal.
What did you say?
He warned about the dangers of burdensome compliance norms.
Right, he specifically mentioned administrative procedures and conformity requirements. If I understand this correctly, it means that even if tariffs are lowered to zero, if an Indian business has to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on paperwork just to prove they meet European environmental or labor standards, they just won't export the product.
Exactly. The cost of compliance destroys the benefit of the free trade.
Wow.
Yeah, the ambassador referred to it as unfinished business. He highlighted the glaring absence of an investment liberalization chapter covering non-services sectors. Because if the administrative rules are designed too rigidly, the trade barriers don't actually disappear. They simply shift form.
So they transform from visible financial tariffs into just invisible mountains of paperwork.
Exactly. A rigid regulatory framework can choke international trade just as effectively as a military blockade in a strait.
Man. So bringing all of these incredibly diverse sources together, whether you are actively prepping for a UPSC interview or you're simply trying to understand the complex machinery of the world around you, today showed that absolutely everything is connected.
It really is all tied together.
Governance, at its core, is entirely about managing friction. We saw it in the legal fiction of MLAs switching sides in a deadlocked state assembly. We saw it in the rigid criminal statutes that severely restrict a vulnerable minor's access to vital medical care.
Right.
We found hidden intelligence in Bengaluru's wastewater and the overlooked genetics of fathers. And we watched the geopolitical chessboard struggle with literal blockades in the Strait of Hormuz and bureaucratic hurdles in European trade deals.
It forces us to ask a fundamental question about how we design the architecture of our societies. We've seen today how rigid structures, whether they are inflexible gestational limits in healthcare, strict anti-defection laws built on technicalities, or stubborn geopolitical blockades, frequently break under the intense, unpredictable pressure of real-world crises.
Absolutely.
So for the future policymakers listening to this deep dive, the ultimate question to consider is this. In a world defined by rapid supply chain shocks, shifting political loyalties, and deeply complex human needs, should the law be designed as an unbreakable wall or as a flexible net?
That is a brilliant thought to leave on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive today. Keep reading, keep questioning the sources, and we will see you next time.